Okay, Chair, you can go ahead and start when you're ready.
All righty, welcome everyone to the LAFCO meeting. Let's call this meeting to order and do roll call.
Commissioner Jordan,
Present.
Commissioner Stevens,
Here.
Commissioner Kosmicki,
Here.
and Vice Chair Mello.
Present.
Thank you.
All right, Leslie, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, move on to number 3, approve affidavit of posting agenda.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second. Oh, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion passes. And let's see, number 4, public comment period. This is an opportunity for members of the public to speak on items that are not on the agenda. We have no one in the audience. Is there anyone on Zoom?
There is no one on Zoom for this item.
Okay. Move on to number 5, business items, general business, non-hearing items. 5.1, approval of minutes. Has everybody had an opportunity to look at the minutes?
Yes.
And is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pass minutes. Okay, and moving on to 5.2, streamline doc access presentation and consideration of subscription. And I believe that's Jennifer and Yennefer.
Yep.
Okay.
So we have online a member of Streamline, Yennefer Herschelman. She'll be presenting to you on a new product that Streamline is offering. As a reminder, our website is hosted by Streamline and was developed by them. So we are also already customers of Streamline, but as part of their website, they are also offering this doc access kind of software that will aid in ensuring that PDFs, et cetera, are reader accessible for the vision impaired. So she'll go through in more detail, but I do want to make a couple of corrections on items that are in your packet. In the summary in your packet, it says that it's $100 a month, I believe. Let me see what I put there.
Yeah.
So Yennefer and I first met and discussed this a couple of months ago, and we have not since had a meeting here. So I was unable to bring it to you. The agreement that is in your packet as an example is expired, and they have since changed their rate system. So that is no longer accurate, and I'm sure she'll speak to that. And also, starting April 1st, they will be doing a $1,000 implementation fee for setup. So just being aware of those two things, and she'll talk about what the cost will be. Also, if you do decide to move forward with making use of this software, it would come this fiscal year out of the contingency fund, of which has been untouched. So there's still, I think, about $20,000 sitting in the contingency fund. So it's more than enough to cover the cost of this service. And then for the next fiscal year, which we'll be talking about the budget in April, we can talk about where to appropriately draw that from. Okay, so Yennefer, are you ready?
Sure am. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Hi, everybody. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for letting me join your board meeting today. I really do appreciate it. Like Jennifer mentioned, her and I had met a couple months ago in regards to PDF accessibility. I do have a deck that I am going to review, so I'm going to share my screen here. Just let me know if you guys can see it.
We're not seeing it yet here. Oh, there we go.
Is it there now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. All right, so yeah, like Jennifer mentioned, you guys are currently customers of ours, so we do sure appreciate you and we love serving you as the customer for your website. But what we'll primarily be talking about today is PDF accessibility and our doc access solution, which is separate to the website, but it is integratable. I want to just start the conversation with just learning a little bit more about how you guys know about PDFs. One of the questions that I do get from our customers, and I like to clarify it on the front end, is for ADA accessibility, your website is in great condition. So there are no ADA issues there with your website pages, videos, or images. The biggest ADA risk is your PDFs, and that primarily has to do with the complexity of learning how to build accessible PDFs. That can require technical guidelines, downloading special software, or it can be tedious error correction with having third-party remediators take care of it for you. If you guys don't mind me asking, maybe just by a show of hands, are you guys familiar with PDF accessibility? Have you heard of it before?
We have some nodding heads.
Madam
Okay,
Chair,
okay, awesome.
PDFs in general, or is this different?
Yes, so I know some know and some don't, and that's totally fine. Most of the customers I speak to, it's about 50%, so we're kind of on track there. But really taking a look at how this is currently affecting your accessibility compliance is particularly talking about the DOJ regulations. The DOJ passed a bill back in April of 2024 requiring all local government agencies, including small or large, to be able to have accessible digital content by April of 2026. For where your guys' population stands, that would be the correct timeline. Essentially what that requires is for your PDFs to be made accessible and also your digital content, but your website is already in great condition for that. So we're really just looking at PDFs here. Now, with that in mind, where you guys stand with your PDF accessibility score is I went ahead and ran a site scan accessibility report just to show you where you currently stand. And this is your current accessibility score. So your average document score is about 51%. The interesting thing about ADA accessibility is it's more of a pass or fail test versus an A, B, C, or D. Meaning if there is one thing that is wrong, it entirely fails the ADA test. It's not, hey, if you get a B, like, you know, back at school, C's get us to some sort of degree, but with ADA accessibility, it's more of a pass or fail. How that comes into play with where you guys currently stand is you have 1,500 plus inaccessible pages currently on your website. That is very common, so you're certainly not alone in what we've seen. What that means, though, is that you do need to make sure that these are accessible. These are only documents that are currently posted, but it's not considering also documents that you will post in the future. Now, with that in mind, there are 3 paths that you can take for PDF compliance by April of 2026. And this really just depends on the bandwidth of the LAFCO. So I just want to walk you through what that would look like for you. Before I do that, though, I just want to wrap things up with a bow for specifically talking about laws is when we're talking about ADA accessibility, the specific standards are the WCAG 2.1. That stands for Website Content Accessibility Guidelines at the 2.1 tier. Basically what that means is our scanners are always checking for that standard. So if the PDF doesn't pass that standard, then that's why it is marked inaccessible. Those requirements are required both at the federal and at the state level. So it's important to note that the standards are always keeping us in ongoing compliance. If the standards were ever to change, then our scanners would make sure that we are scanning for the right standards at the time. I'll pause here. Any questions that I can answer so far for you?
I just want to provide a quick, sorry, I'll look back up. Just a quick description on what it means when we talk about accessibility of PDFs, because you keep hearing these buzzwords, but if you're not dealing with it on a regular basis, it's really hard to envision what they're talking about. So in my mind, I thought if a PDF has been OCR recognized, where it can recognize all of the words in the document, therefore it must be accessible, right? But that is not the case. I have another LAFCO that is going through this because someone is vision impaired and they use an assisted reader on their computer. Just having it readable means, yes, it can read every single line, but it doesn't tell you it's a title, it's text. It doesn't allow you to skip from section to section because it's what's called a continuous read. So even in like an agenda, you can't skip through the headings to see what's coming up next. You just have to listen to it as it scrolls through the entire document. So in order to make them set up or remediated so that these readers can read them in a helpful manner, that is what we are discussing here. So our PDFs are likely OCR recognized, but we're not meeting that next tier of accessibility. So, sorry, I just wanted to go back and talk about those basics.
And
sorry, Sharon.
Jennifer, if I could just ask just a quick, just to clarify and put a little bow on what you just said. So is this then for both hearing and visual impaired individuals? Is that when we say accessible, that it's in order to assist those two populations?
My understanding it is also for hearing impairment.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we actually, and I can actually walk you through, Jennifer, thank you so much for clarifying that too, because I do get that question often. I actually do want to walk you through an example of one of your PDFs and like, here's what marks it as inaccessible and what Doc Access can do. But to answer that question, one of the options that Doc Access has is we provide live visual interpreting services for people with disabilities, whether they're visually impaired or hearing impaired as well. We partner through IRA, so if somebody wanted to connect with somebody through IRA to walk them through that file, they could do so. Does that answer your question? I just want to make sure I got.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's an example of one of your primers that I actually got from the website, and I'm gonna separate my screen. You guys can hopefully see that. Just changed it. I'm actually gonna go back to the print-friendly view for now. So one of the things that Jennifer was mentioning that was really good to call out is when we're talking about accessibility is, can a screen reader actually be able to read this document out loud to the person with the visual impairment, for example? So when we post these kinds of informations, what screen readers are looking for is structure tagging, alternative text. So if it's a table or an image, to provide the alternative text is important because otherwise the screen reader won't be able to actually disseminate that information. A real life example of this is I had a district in Colorado who posted an fire evacuation notice, and it was not accessible, wasn't properly tagged. So the screen reader didn't know the difference between reading the word or reading it letter by letter. So instead of saying, please evacuate immediately, the PDF actually said, or the screen reader said, PLEASE, EVA, and so on. So you can start to see the complications that it can create for specifically people with visual impairments because they won't actually be able to disseminate that information. So the way that Doc Access works is anytime that you're posting a document, like this one, for example, I imagine this is probably like a presentation that you guys had. It's got different visuals, it's got pictures. I saw some tables here as well. So as you're posting this is gonna be in the original print-friendly view, so people can still see this original version. But if somebody with the visual impairment wanted to actually read this, have their screen reader read it, they can enable the accessible transcript view, and instantly Doc Access extracts all that text and puts it into an accessible format. So as an example here, the print-friendly view had these tables. Now this doesn't have any alternative text attached to it, so what it'll do is it'll actually grab the text and it'll provide all the alternative text here at the bottom. And then it'll be able to do that for things like tables, diagrams, Agendas, this is a good example where you have the city of Hollister. And if I click on the accessible transcript view, then it's actually going to mark what the map is saying here. Now, in my previous comment here, if somebody needed additional assistance, they actually have live visual interpreting services available through IRA. IRA is a really cool platform. They actually, funny enough, help people with things like grocery shopping or ordering a coffee at Starbucks. They're very well known among the visually impaired community, or just the overall hard of hearing community as well. But they do have access to be able to read these documents out loud with somebody live with them. They can also translate the document in multiple languages, up to 250. One thing I do want to note is the Brown Act is currently being revised. We added the translation feature almost as a proactive way of doing this, because the Brown Act is considering actually adding a translation requirement. And I don't know if you guys can read Spanish, so I'm going to go back to English here. For longer documents, because everything is properly tagged, the screen reader can actually go back and forth between each of the titles instead of them having to, like, imagine like having a visual impairment and having to endlessly scroll to find that one page of that one piece of information that they're looking for. They don't have to do that anymore. They can just click on the title and it'll take them directly to that page. They could also ask the document questions like, I know this is a very simple one, but what is this document about? And it's able to interact back and forth between each of the options, like as far as what this document is saying. So the way that Doc Access comes into play with your PDFs is you have those 1,000 plus documents that are currently not accessible. And there's really 3 ways to think about PDF compliance. I also want to be mindful, because of the DOJ ruling with the upcoming deadline of April 2026, here's kind of the way that you guys can think about it. There's 3 routes. The first is you can DIY it. You can have somebody run a report of each and every one of those pages to fix all the errors that have been found. That does require additional staff time. The estimated time per page is about 25 minutes. So just simple math there, if it's 25 times 1,000 plus PDF pages, that's around 625 plus hours to be compliant within the next month or so. You could also have a third-party remediator. Typically that does come with unpredictable costs. The average cost per page remediated is about $10 per page. So 10 times about 1,500 pages is what you have, is around $15,000. And that will probably be at least a 2-month project, if not longer, because of the amount of time it takes a third-party person to actually manually remediate it. It is also one-time compliant, which means that it will only take care of the PDFs that are currently on your website, but none of the ones that are in your future. And then Doc Access is an integratable system, so it's added onto your website, and it'll automatically convert all of the PDFs that you have into an accessible format. We will continue to handle the compliance in that sector, so if, for example, the standards ever change, then Doc Access can update itself and make sure that your PDF pages are up to the par. It's about a 1-day project, so within 24 hours, all of your PDF pages will be made accessible. It removes that risk aversion with the DOJ regulations and all the other things that come into civil violations and lawsuits. And then it's automated ongoing compliance as well. So there's no additional net staff time that's required for that. I'll pause there so that I can leave some room for questions. I have one more slide left, but I just want to take a moment here.
I have a question. That cost that's on the green box there, that's the current cost?
Yeah, the cost for under the Doc Access one?
Yeah.
Yes, that would be the cost for Doc Access.
Okay, thank you.
Also, I'll confirm that these are not exaggerations on the time that it takes to remediate an old document. I've had to have staff go back based on requests from the public and create a reader-friendly document out of a 200-page document, and it took a couple of days of hardcore focused effort by one staff member. So we're talking 16 hours to get it in a reader-friendly format. Granted, there was some learning involved, but it's very time-consuming.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so like as an example, the one document that I had shown, that one I think was about 13 pages. So remediating something like that with just one full-time staff would take probably one full workday to be able to do that. So here's what it would look like to implement something like Doc Access onto your website. And I know that Jennifer had references earlier, but the cost savings is in accordance to essentially what it would typically cost for PDF remediation. And then she also mentioned that there is a $1,000 cost avoidance. We just got notified that our implementation team is implementing a $500 to $1,000 implementation fee for setting it up. That won't begin until April 1. So I do have the ability to completely waive that for you if you do decide to move forward with Doc Access before that timeline.
Is that the end of your presentation?
Sorry about that. I think my Wi-Fi cut
okay.
out there, but I also wanted to reference a couple of other LAFCOs that we have worked with, and also different customers that we have been able to help out with their PDFs. I think my slides are lagging, so you guys probably might have just seen the pricing one, but can you guys see the new one here?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So we actually did onboard San Bernardino LAFCO, Orange County LAFCO. I actually just recently met with San Luis Obispo LAFCO. And we also have a lot of other districts that we have worked with. Doc Access, we have been able to make over 9 million PDFs accessible, serving across 2,800 different organizations. That ranges from city to county to LAFCO to special district, but it has been really cool to be able to see how these documents can be readily available and the risk aversion that a lot of these entities are facing with just having something that's simple and easy to do. And so really appreciate you taking the time to learn more about PDF accessibility and see how you guys can also avoid that risk aversion too. Thank you.
All right, thank you. It was a great presentation. And so
I got feedback from Jennifer, so you can thank her.
Just to confirm, it is a liability to keep these documents in an accessible format. There has been, LA LAFCO has faced a couple of lawsuits due to inaccessible documents that totaled something like $36,000, I think is what they ended up paying in the end. So it is a liability, just so you're aware.
okay. So at this point, do we want to go to public comment? Any
There are
public-
no public comments here or online.
Okay. All right, and so shall we have a motion to,
Can we discuss?
Can I ask?
after the
Thank-
motions, I'm going by Robert's Rules of Order, right?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, so
Discussion.
is discussion?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure.
Thank you. Thanks, Jennifer. That was my question on what if we don't, what are the ramifications if we don't accept this? So I appreciate your comment just now. Thank you.
I just have a quick question. So in terms of keeping up with future documents, so you kind of said something about you'll do what we have currently that need to be updated or need to be reformatted into an accessible format. Future documents, what does that look like? Jennifer, I guess, lets you know we have new stuff there that needs to be remediated, or you guys are kind of checking what's there. What does that process look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm actually gonna share my screen back. I want to show you something really quickly I think will be helpful for that. But short answer for that is definitely yes. We will be monitoring that as you're continuing to post in the future as well. So the way that Doc Access works is it grows with you. So as you're posting more information, it'll be able to enable more pages. Actually, I'm going to share this here if my Wi-Fi wants to work today. Alrighty, so here at the bottom where it says room to grow, so the customer page capacity increases by 10% each month. What that means is every month you get an additional 500 pages to allow you to continue to publish more documents. We have never run into a situation so far where customers run out of pages. So the reason why the 10% is there is because we found that that was the average amount that was currently increasing per customer. So we just want to make sure that as you are continuing to post, there's no concern that we won't be able to cover you for those additional pages as well.
Okay, I just want to be clear, because my question was really specifically about basically whose responsibility is to stay on top of that. Is Jennifer like letting you know we have stuff there, so then it's kind of falls on us, or it's you that are just constantly perusing it, and then it's on you? Because I guess ultimately, if we're talking about liability, then we need to kind of know who's responsible for those kinds of things so that later on it doesn't become an issue.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for clarifying. So the burden would be on Doc Access. That's the biggest difference between third-party remediation versus Doc Access, is we get to handle that compliance for you. So as Jennifer continues to post the PDF pages, Doc Access will automatically create an accessible version alongside that. So there will always be an accessible version alongside any of the documents that you have on your website. That means that the compliance burden no longer stands on the LAFCO, but it stands on us.
Okay, great. That was what I was looking for. Thank you.
Chair,
Yeah.
if I may.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the agenda gets posted and Doc Access automatically reads it? Or is there a conversation to further expand on Commissioner Stevens? Doc Access automatically sees it, or is there a conversation that has to ensue, hi, I've uploaded this?
Yeah. So it is automatic document processing. So let's just say, for example, I go into your website and I want to look at the agenda for today. Let me just show you a real life example so that you can kind of see what it looks like. So this customer is currently on Doc Access. So if I go on here and I'm like, okay, I want to see what's going to be covered in this upcoming month's agenda, I'm going to go on to the website just like I had in the past, and then I'm going to click on the agenda, and then here's what's going to pop up. The original version of the file will always remain the same, so it doesn't alter anything on your end. When I click on the accessible transcript view, that accessible version will always be available. So if you post any new documents onto your website, Doc Access will automatically have the accessible transcript view readily available.
So it's an automated process. As the document is uploaded, then the accessible version is almost immediately available.
Yes, exactly. There is no downtime. So as soon as you post the document, there's always going to be an accessible version available. And the biggest reason for that is because, like Jennifer was mentioning earlier, the average lawsuit for local governments for ADA is about $39,000. Typically, those lawsuits happen because there was a delay in the process of getting a document or getting something specific like a public request form. So by having it readily available, it really diminishes the risk over time.
Thank you.
Further questions or discussion? Seeing none, now we make a move to
I'll move
approve.
to approve the supplemental agreement with Streamline to ensure accessibility of all documents as presented.
I'll
Is there-
second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call. Roll call, right?
Yeah, we can do a roll call. Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Kozmicki,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Mello.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for your presentation. And
Thank you, everybody, for hosting me.
I guess Jennifer
Thank you.
will be talking to you soon.
Take care. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, now we move on to 5.3, CalAFCO Mid-Year Business Meeting Update. That's you, Jennifer.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is just a quickie. February 23rd, CalAFCO held a mid-year business meeting to consider some changes to the bylaws and the structure of the board. It would firstly eliminate board member seat types. Presently, you're represented by a county member, a city member, a special district member, and a public member. So they're doing away with those seat types. So you will just have 4 general representatives for the coastal region. And then the other major change would be allowing executive officers to also sit on the board as voting members. As it exists presently, last October, it was approved that the regional executive officers are voting members on the board, but starting in October now, they will go away and executive officers will be part of the 4 that represent the region. So we'll be back down to a 16-member voting board. So both of those major changes were approved, along with a couple of other minor edits in the bylaws by a vote of 40-2. Also, we had discussed the potential for the proposed reorganization, for which I had drafted a letter opposing the proposal, and they have since tabled that for the time being due to a lack of support and consensus. So that right now is no longer on the table, at least for consideration or moving forward in the near future. So starting in October, we will have up for election all 4 seats in the region. So all 16 seats on the board will be up and open for election. So they're starting fresh, and half will sit for a 2-year term and half will sit for a 1-year term to create a staggered term of 2-year terms going forward.
Jennifer, can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
Just correct me if I'm wrong. When you talked about the reorganization or the restructuring, was this related to the discussion that we had at the conference when we talked about increasing representation or increasing is not the right word, changing it so that those that were in smaller jurisdictions kind of formed one body, and then those that had larger jurisdictions were maybe in a separate body, so that the representation was a little bit different? Because one of the concerns that came up was when we're such a small jurisdiction and we're grouped together in larger jurisdictions like Santa Clara County, for example, that we kind of get overshadowed and our needs aren't really addressed properly. So is that what you're talking about in terms of tabling the restructuring? And if that is, then can you just tell us why that happened? What was the reason for tabling that restructuring?
So the specific tabling of the restructuring that I'm talking about is back in January, I believe was the last time I saw you. There was a working group that had put together a proposal for a further breakdown of the regions. Right now, there are 4 regions that split up the state, and that compose the CalAFCO board. They proposed to further break it down into 9 regions. In any case, that breakdown was not equitable for many of the northern LAFCOs, and that was why I had written this letter of opposing that specific reorganization attempt that they were working on. They had a meeting following, and they had had several letters providing opposition to that very specific reorganization attempt. I think they attempted to try to address those comments, but they couldn't come to consensus. And so they have stopped having a discussion about that particular reorganization attempt. So there's other stuff still in the works, just not that specific 9-region proposal that they had come out with.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, and I mean, my hope is that that's still kind of on the table, that some consideration about like jurisdictions, like trying to group those in a way, because when we're, like coming together as a group and we're trying to support something or stand against something, hopefully we have similar issues, and oftentimes that's not the case with such a variation in the jurisdiction size.
Mhm.
Okay, that's all I needed.
Question, Madam Chair.
Yes.
So the elections that we just had for the city, that's in October will no longer, and it's a whole new ballgame.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep. Every position will be open, and we won't be restricted by type. So anybody would be eligible to be as part of the board at that point.
Further questions, comments? Okay. Any public comment?
There are no public comments for this item.
Thank you. Then I guess we move on to item 6.
5.4.
Oh, I'm sorry, 5.4. Announce vacancy of public member alternate position. Jennifer?
Yes, so the public member alternate has resigned effective February 4th. So we are back to having to replace that position. And what I need from you in order to do that is direction to put up the public notice of vacancy, and then at our April 9th meeting, we'll consider appointing a new public member alternate.
Okay. Is there a motion to post that?
I have a comment.
Okay.
So a couple of observations regarding this whole process. It seems that we've gotten more ceremonial than not. And being on the commission holds a certain seriousness, if you will, and respect for the whole entire process. And the public should have confidence in those that we choose. In January of 2024, when the whole entire commission flipped, the voting pattern was either a 3-1 or a 4-1 vote. And it goes along with the most recent application that we received, or commissioner that we appointed for the public alternate. So we had three applications, and one commissioner clearly stated that they got up there, they didn't want the position, that others were more qualified, and that they would rather not take that position. Yet this commission on a 4-1 vote said, well, we're going to vote you in anyway. So the record reflects that an individual who openly stated did not want to serve became appointed, and here we are, him not serving. So if I can just say that appointments of this importance should reflect both the willingness and the commitment of the individual who is chosen to serve, and that the public deserves somebody who actually wants to sit here, wants to follow LAFCO law, and wants to represent the whole of San Benito County. These are standards that we should not actually have for the public position, but that we all should adhere to. We have a job, and the county at large should expect and deserves to have people that sit on this commission that adhere to all of those rules. Thank you.
Further comments? Discussion? Public comment?
There are no public comments for this item.
I'll move to approve as recommended.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I think that was everyone. Okay, motion passes. All right, now we go into informational. 6.1. That would be you, Jen.
Yes. First and foremost, it's not on here, but your Form 700s are due. I'm certain that you are all on top of it. But just a reminder, by April 1st. And then also the wastewater MSR, we are kind of waiting for the remainder of the letters from the public agencies, specifically the county. But once we have that, we can move forward. But I'm also kind of at a point where it was a good thing that we have not yet adopted it, because I think that there's been recent movement in the news, et cetera, that probably needs to be reflected in the report itself. So I'll also, as part of this process, be updating the content in the report to reflect the current status of the wastewater treatment plant. For the city MSR, those are fully drafted and in review, and the next step will be just the ad hoc meeting to release, to bring it to the commission and release for public review. So we are nearing completion of that. The third item, we have received an application. It will be filed 2026-551 for the annexation of the Toro Petroleum property. This actually is a streamlined application that came from the city itself. That means that we can hear it immediately, no tax sharing process. And you'll likely be hearing that at your April meeting. And then number 4 is Sunny Slope is working on the second part of the annexation process for its major water infrastructure project that it has underway, and that will include Tres Pinos and Stonegate, I believe, those two areas. So they are nearing submitting an application to LAFCO. I am assisting with some outreach to Tres Pinos because it is a special district. So I'll be participating in their April meeting when they consider a resolution to submit the application to LAFCO. The next one is, I know that there's been discussion, but I have not received anything back yet about tax sharing agreement between the city and county for landowner driven applications to LAFCO. So I don't know the status on that yet. And then finally, we do have a pretty significant agenda for April. So I would expect that our meeting will be 1.5 to 2 hours long, so that you're aware for your schedule purposes. That will include a presentation by the San Benito High School District, the annual staff performance review that we talked about doing as part of the budget preparation, the draft budget that needs to be adopted by May, and then consideration of that annexation proposal from Hollister, and then hopefully appointment of a public member alternate. So, yeah, look forward to a longish meeting. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Jennifer. All right, on to 6.2, commissioner announcements and requests for future agenda items.
Can I make a comment?
Of course.
Thank you. So the city MSRs, they are with the cities now?
No, they are to be sent to the cities, but they are
Okay.
entirely drafted
Okay, and
and ready for review.
by the city?
Yes.
And how long are you giving the cities for review? And when do we anticipate them going?
Beginning of next week.
Okay, and how long are we giving them?
I have no preference. I think that a few weeks is a good idea unless they have significant issues. But
So we could
That will-
potentially have them by the May meeting?
yes,
Okay,
yes.
and then what happens? It doesn't go back to the committees, correct?
It does. I will send a copy to the ad hoc committee first before it goes for public review.
Okay, so after it goes to the cities and the ad hocs, and then it goes to public review, and that'll take another moment, and then it comes back to the full commission.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so the committees will meet with you?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that.
Do I need to backpedal and ask for public comment?
Kinda.
Can I ask one quick
Um,
question, just to clarify? On the tax sharing agreement, do you need anything from us?
A signed resolution.
Okay, so you need that, okay. So I just want to follow up with our city manager, sorry about that.
From both entities, so from the county and city.
Any further questions, comments? Okay, now we'll move to 6.2, commissioner announcements and requests for future agenda items.
I have nothing, thank you.
Mayor Stevens, no? Call? No? Okay. Well, then I believe that takes us to the end of the meeting, and we will adjourn. Thanks, everybody.